Shalom, shalom, and welcome. Welcome to Final Exodus Framework. It is part of the White Robe series. My brothers and sisters, in this installment, I want to talk about man from a man's perspective. And you might say, well, what does this have to do with the final Exodus? My brothers and sisters, I want you to indulge me. I want you to, not so much me, but incline your ears to hear these words. There's no doubt that growing uncertainty is spreading across the face of the earth. There's no doubt that people are fearful of what's to come and what's happening. There's no doubt that many of us believe we are in apocalyptic times or end times. But I believe there has not been much discussion on what is the Spirit of Yahusha saying to us. What is Abba Yahuah's Spirit sending Yahusha's name saying to us as uncertainty grows, as people are evicted, as foreclosures are occurring, as people are experiencing hunger like never before, as famine, pestilence, and diseases are widespread, as civil unrest continues on. From a man's perspective, my brothers and sisters, how many women, how many men have reflected on the journey from a man's perspective? It is said that a child hears and experiences the emotions that the mother will have while carrying that baby, or there'll be some exposure. I'm not a doctor nor a scientist. From birth to childhood, I believe that babies are influenced by what they see. They look around. Yes, they begin to look at their hands, their feet. They want to get into things. Childhood, from a man's perspective, a child looks at another man, and see, is he like me? Don't take for granted that children can distinguish whether you're like them or not. And I'm speaking from a man's perspective. From the teenage years, my brothers and sisters, to puberty, I'm going to present a case of some things we must be mindful of as end times ramp up. I'm going to present the case about what a young adult will go through. I want to talk about adulthood and marriage, the aging, all of this from a man's perspective, legacies and death. Come with me, my brothers and sisters. So, pre-birth, birth to childhood, what is happening? A child hears what the mother says. The child hears from a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year-old. There are children even further up, pre-teen years. I'm going to talk about that. Being exposed to the things that have programmed us. In other words, from a man's perspective, the man may look at instructing that child, that young male, on life from his perspective. There are fathers who will say, oh, they're ready to hear that. Oh, they're all right. There are fathers and mothers who will dress their man-child in ways that they think is cute. Programming the child, in some cases, to be vain. Programming the child to think one thing is more important than another. The final Exodus. While uncertainty is growing, surely there are conversations going on. And I want us to begin to realize that our children listen. And if given the opportunity, if we engage them in conversation, we will see, what are they thinking? This is a time to engage your child. The ones that talk, the ones that get into things. Look at how they move about. Consider how they look at you. From a man's perspective, my brothers and sisters. There are some men that believe that it is their job to just provide income, and that the mother's job is to raise the child and educate the child. If that's the case, what type of man are you bringing up? By the time a man reaches teenage years and puberty, by the time a man is a young adult, if you are a man who have let your wife or women or abandon your child, and the male child was raised, and now you expect them to be strong and fearless. Now you expect them to know what it takes to be prepared for adulthood. But if they spent most of their attention and their life under the wife or women, what do you think the outcome is going to be? There are men who are now reflecting on their life and they didn't have a father, or the father didn't show them the love that Yahusha commands. Why is this important? Because there are scars. As Yashar'al come together, there are scars, there are stories, some worse than others, some better than others. But from childhood, from teenage to puberty to the young adult, we can spend time talking about the regret and the pain of yesterday. But I submit to you, O Yashar'al, it's time to understand that as we engage one another, some men went through hell, so to speak, and some went through nurturing, and some went through set-apart instructions. If ever there was a time to understand the blood of the Lamb, that time is now. If ever there was a time to begin to instruct our young men, our young boys, if we would say, our young males, that the love of Yahusha, if you believe and trust him through his blood, he can cover all things of yesterday and yesteryear. We won't forget, but how do we get past the pain, the neglect? How do we get past the entitlement? How do we get past whatever mindset we have as a man in Yashar'al? By discerning the living words coming from scriptures, by being able to rightly divide his word, by being under set apart chosen leaders and teachers, by emphasizing how deliverance can be expedited or sped up if we focus forward. Young men of Yashar'al, focus forward on what is expected of you now. Do not succumb to feeling sorry for yourself, and do not succumb to telling your story for females to feel sorry. There are relationships that have been established because the female felt sorry for the male, for the man. Don't use that as a tool to be coy or manipulative. There are relationships that have broken up because the female felt sorry for the man, only to discover his mindset was constantly looking back. Men of Yashar'al, focus forward. Look at what you have been called to do for such a time as this. You know, as a young adult, moving from puberty to young adult, there are challenges. Society have made the true Hebrew male and those who have followed close with him to think that they must prove themselves as an individual. For some reason, we neglect all the set-apart attributes that are necessary to make our men strong and walk in set-apartness. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, for the females, for the women, for the mothers, for the aunts, for the grandmothers, for all female. You hear me talk about vet often, and I think we should vet ourselves and vet our men. We should begin to ask the questions. What do our young male need to grow strong for such a time as this? What does the young adult going through puberty need for such a time as this? What does the adult man need for such a time as this? And if they are interested in marriage, have they been instructed? Have they been supported? Have they been loved? Have they been provided all the things to support their development to step into marriage? Yashar'al, I'm asking questions because there are things we must begin to recognize what is occurring. For in all that have happened yesterday, the Almighty Father will present what is coming before us as it relates to everlasting life. There are the aging males, some who still carry the weight of conditioning of this Western culture, some carrying the weight of erroneous teachings in scriptures, some awakening even at an old age. The question also, have they been developed? What legacies, what stories do they have to tell that are lessons to be learned? What messages can they give to the child, to the young man after them? Have we as elders taught our children the realities of death of these earthen vessels? From a man's perspective, O Yashar'al, there's so much to consider. Sure, from a woman's as well, and I would talk about that. You hear me say there's much work to be done during these last days. Let's start growing to be mindful of the journey of a man and how we are to support our men and how we can demonstrate set apartness in a way that causes our men who have been misled or mistaught or conditioned to come into the path of the flowing spirit of the Almighty Father, sent in Yahusha's name. There's work to be done, Yashar'al. Much work. I just wanted to take this time, my brothers and sisters. Think about the journey of the man from boy to adulthood to marriage. Think about what it is Yahusha would have them to do. There's some erroneous teachers that even would say to the wife to worship the man. That's wicked. Deliverance will come for Yashar'al. The discipline of the Almighty Father that is mentioned in the 12th chapter of Hebrews and Revelation 3:19, the discipline has begun. We will see as end times ramp up. There are men who have been raised erroneously. There are men who are cowards, but they try to act like they're brave because they have not been taught how to be brave. There are men that put a false sense of security in things and stuff. There are men that think they have to prove themselves. I say to you, O Yashar'al, let us embrace the man, the set-apart man of Yashar'al, and let us provide him the necessary instructions for making him strong, for recognizing that our strength comes by Yahuah. It is not, a man could lift weights and be a bodybuilder and have a heart attack and stroke out and may not even have the swiftness or the speed to protect his family. A man could have weapons, guns, and become blind and weak. Am I saying a man can't protect his household? Sure, I protect mine. But let us not define the man one way and put burdens on him that he may not be equipped or trained to handle. Yeah, am I ranting? I'm just about done. I just want you to think about as this Exodus being gathered from the four corners of the earth, as 144,000 Hebrews, 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Yashar'al, as mentioned in Revelation 7 chapter. And know that there is a great multitude. The role of man. There are some men that are ordered to be single. There are some men that are ordered to have a single wife. And there will be some men that will have multiple wives. And there will be men that will be in the wrong place, doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, or just because one man have multiple wives, they think they're supposed to have multiple wives. Or there are men who have a single wife that think all supposed to have one wife. Nation building components, my brothers and sisters. The man will wake up and realize, what is the calling? Am I called to be a single man? Am I called to be a man with one wife? Am I called to be a man with many wives? Each of those, believe it or not, carry specific responsibilities, duties, and demand specific actions. Yashar'al, as end times get intense, the need for urgency, the need to come together in unity as the scriptures see fit is now. Our men are battling with a lot of things, a lot of pressure. But so is the woman. And I will speak on that specifically from a woman's perspective. But I want us to begin to have discussions about our men, our man. And I'm not saying, I'm a heterosexual, so I'm not promoting that stuff that's outside the scripture. By no means, my brothers and sisters. Some may assume that because of the colors that I use. But I want to say this, my brothers and sisters. The rainbow was provided by your Almighty Father Yahuah as a sign that he would never flood the earth again. Let us learn as growing individuals and set apartness. Because the wicked one seeks to pervert what is set apart, do not lose focus on the beginnings of things that have been perverted, that are set apart. Let us know what is true, what is righteous. As a man, my brothers and sisters, I'm just saying to you who are listening, if you've been reared and you've missed out on things that would make you a better man, pray on these matters. Instructions will come on how to deal with that. If you are a man who have been in the favor of the Almighty Father, who have been raised in set apartness, don't think you're better than the one who has went through hardship. Believe it or not, we can learn from one another. And this is important and relative to the final Exodus, because there are some strengths that will emerge out of our experiences, O man of Yahuah. Let us look at those set apart strengths and let us learn from each other. Let us witness the Spirit of the Most High work in us, through us, one towards another. And understand what Ephesians 5:21 means when it talks about subjecting yourselves one towards another. Although, my brothers and sisters, it's speaking of the husband and wife, many miss in the 5th chapter of Ephesians where it says, just as Messiah did for the assembly. They missed that. I say that subjecting ourselves one towards another is as the Spirit of Yahuah works in us, through us, one towards another. Man of Yashar'al, the refinement and all that you need to raise up, in spite of however you've been raised, in spite of whatever challenges you have come across, and those who we have witnessed being killed that are innocent. Remember, the scriptures read, vengeance is mine, saith the Almighty Father Yahuah. I will repay. It speaks of his vengeance and his wrath. It also speaks of his discipline. I'm done. At this point, I say to you, Yashar'al, let's look at our men. Let's engage one another, O men of Yashar'al. Let us talk about how we move beyond what was yesterday and talk about what we should do going forward and how to accept the living instructions from the Almighty Father. On that note, thank you for listening to me. Remember, whatever actions Whatever we do going forward, there are no rewind buttons. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, the man of Yahuah, the men of Yahuah will play a great role in this final exodus. On that note, thank you for your patience, your tolerance. Pray about the words. And if you receive anything, any nugget that can contribute towards you becoming stronger and set apartness, I pray that all credit and esteem goes to the Almighty Father. Final Exodus framework. There's some things we must and will be mindful of. In the name of Yahusha, I come to you as your brother. As a servant to Abba Yahuah, I come to you. My name is Symmanayah. There's much work to be done. Men of Yahuah, let us learn how to be used by the Almighty Father in bringing Yashar'al together and making us whole and complete. On that note, I say to you, thank you and Shalum.